Good day, Industrial Advisors listeners, and thank you for tuning in. If you have not subscribed, please do so by clicking subscribe wherever you podcast. Click the like button and hit the bell if you want notifications of when we put up new content. Leave us a comment about anything we discuss here today or general comments about the show. Now, let's get into it. Welcome to the Industrial Advisors Podcast. We are here live with Bill Condon, myself, Matt McGregor. We are at IAMC in Detroit, Michigan. And we have, once again, this is actually the first time we've had a second guest on the show. Betsy Power is the director with PepsiCo Global Real Estate. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You were so good the first time. We had to have you back. So tell us a little bit about your background. I was looking at your LinkedIn profile this morning, and you have a great history. Take us back to high school. So I saw it, like myself, you went to junior college.
I did.
And then you became an attorney. So take us to high school. What was your path with that?
So I guess I was just a late bloomer in some ways. I was not sure where I wanted to go to college. So I'm from the Tyler area in East Texas. So I went to Tyler Junior College for 1 year, which was great. I had a younger sister, and she was 1 year behind me, so I kind of waited on her. We both ended up at North Texas State, which now is the University of North Texas. And I knew...
What city is that in?
It's in Tyler, Texas.
Tyler, Texas.
Tyler, Texas,
awesome.
yeah. So it's grown over the years, but it's still, I would say, a relatively small city.
Okay.
But I always knew, and I don't know why, but I did. I voiced that I wanted to be an attorney when I was in sixth grade, and I never wavered from that. So I graduated from the University of North Texas and then immediately went into law school at Texas Tech University.
Great school.
It is a great school. Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. Red Raiders, right?
Absolutely. And Patrick Mahomes is also from White House, which is kind of a sister city to the small town that I grew up in. So we're very proud that he came from East Texas.
For sure.
But I went to Texas Tech, 3 years, law school. I met a man in law school. And we got married, and then we actually ended up practicing together at certain points in our careers. But practicing law, I will say, was not my calling. I was a litigator.
Oh, wow.
And personal injury defense.
Okay. Which,
again, it was just all, my perspective was it was all about the money, right? The attorneys really didn't care so much about the people who had been injured, the lives that had been ravaged, but and it just never felt good to me. But I did it for 9 years.
Wow.
Then
it was your own practice?
No, it was not.
Okay.
I was at a big downtown Dallas law firm. Okay. You know, I had the window office that looked over the Trinity River and, downtown. I mean, I thought I had made it. And for 2 years, I was very happy. But again, litigation, especially personal injury, and I was on the defense side. It was really mostly about billable hours for us. And then for the plaintiff's attorney, it was just about getting as much money as they could for their client. But what I will say is because of the time that I spent at that firm, I really felt like I became a good attorney more quickly, just because of the type of practice that we had. But I just always knew that it wasn't really what I wanted to do. So what I ended up doing is I got to a point where I was just like, you know what, I've got to do something that I enjoy. So I joined Starbucks as a store manager, believe it or not. And of course, when the district manager who interviewed me and hired me was like, why in the world do you want to
power litigator coming in?
Yeah.
Right. And I was just very transparent. I'm like, I hate what I'm doing as an attorney. And at the time, I had been practicing with my ex-husband, and So I had the ability to go and do something that I thought would be much more enjoyable than what I was doing. And I was always a huge Starbucks fan.
Yeah.
Still am.
Yeah.
Still
That's
am.
awesome.
And so I went into operations at Starbucks. Well, I managed a store. Then I got promoted in a couple of years to district manager. And then I managed 12 stores in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Made just some great friendships with the people that I worked with. But then I got divorced and became a single mother.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed to go back to a more 9-to-5. Retail is challenging.
For sure.
Yeah. You're always on, and
Absolutely.
Weekends, holidays, all that.
On call
Yep.
all the time. So I went back to practicing law, and it again, an unusual situation, I guess. But I went back to practicing with my ex husband at the time, and we formed our own firm. We always worked really well together.
That's great.
And we have a son together,
Mhm.
and so we have a really good relationship.
So good.
But I got disenchanted again. I was practicing a different kind of law, and I actually represented Frito-Lay in workers' compensation defense cases. But it's still, again, it was not my calling. So once again, I changed industries. So I'd been an attorney, then I'd been an operations manager. I spoke about this on the podcast last year, is I have a brother who works for Fisher. He's been there 20 years, and he knew I was miserable being an attorney. And he said, well, why don't you come and try real estate? And I was ready for anything, really. I really was. And anything but what I was doing.
And just for the listeners, Fisher, are they a tenant rep only
They
firm?
are tenant
Yes.
rep only
Yeah,
firm.
phenomenal
Yes.
firm. Kind of known for their software back in the day, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and I guess a big FedEx
Yep.
Is a big customer of theirs.
Yep.
So I went to work for my brother-in-law and on his team, and I was a transaction manager.
Yep.
But because there was an account that he needed, someone to be on. So it was just kind of kismet that it happened, that I wanted to do something else different, and he had an opportunity for me. And so I spent 5 years as a transaction manager, but I also did some brokerage. I did, some site tours. I just kind of learned what it takes to be a broker as much as again, a transaction manager. But the account that I was managing went away. And because of that, I had to go look for another job. My brother-in-law, though, because he's been in the industry for so long and knew so many people, he just started dialing for me. Hey, I've got somebody. Didn't say it was his sister-in-law.
Of course.
Right. But he had had a client, James Keeley, who's my now boss. And James said, sure, I'll interview her. And then I got up to the VP of real estate, and he liked me. And I knew zero really about industrial real estate. But again, I have skill sets, right?
That's
so all of the jobs that I had up to PepsiCo, I still use all of those skill sets. People management that I got from Starbucks, negotiation, contracts in being an attorney, and then of course transaction management, brokerage with Fisher. So it's kind of like, again, I'm 59 years old, and most people my age, it was frowned upon if you changed industries,
Sure.
changed jobs, because you're supposed to be at your company for 50 years and then retire. But honestly, having these 4 careers has culminated in me being, I think, in the job that I will retire at, right? I love what I do. It was a hard beginning in that, again, I had to learn everything from scratch. I had good mentors, though. I can't tell you how many times I reached out to my brother-in-law.
For sure.
And
Great contact for real estate.
yes, exactly. And so I feel comfortable now that I'm, I think I'll always grow. I'll always learn something new, but I feel comfortable that I know what I'm doing now.
You definitely know what you're doing.
Yeah, well, you kind of touched on it. I mean, that the background, that you went through made you really good at made you better at what you do today, right? So, that's great. Now we're here, obviously, at IAMC, and I know you are a huge advocate.
I am.
And Matt told me about this organization a couple years back, and I went to my first conference last year. Really enjoyed it. Had an absolute blast. What do you think the biggest benefits to IAMC are?
Well, I'll speak from a corporate end user perspective because I'm sure everybody else has their perspective on it. But I think one of the biggest benefits is the ability to connect with people that, one, we could potentially do business with. I can also connect with other corporate end users. And that has been invaluable for me, not just for the fact that, we do the same thing, but I've actually connected with corporate end users that have helped me. So I'll talk about Don Hanson. So we wanted to buy a piece of property from Granger. And I knew Don through IAMC. Never heard of him before IAMC. And I asked him, because I had developed a relationship with him, I called him up and I said, look, we would like to buy a piece of your property in Davenport, Iowa. Is that possible? And lo and behold, yes, it was. And not only did we buy one piece of land from him, we bought another one as well. But just having met him, we were able to benefit. He didn't need the land, so he got a little money out of the deal. And we got two parcels that allowed us to expand our distribution center in Davenport. And then I just recently met a guy named Gary Haley, who is with Veritiv, and I had been dogging him for years about buying a piece of his property.
See, that brokerage background really did help.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Cold calling at IMC.
That's it.
Absolutely. And it looks like we might be able to do a deal together.
That's so great.
But so there's a multitude of benefits at IAMC. We have a program called IAMC Fellows, and which again is just a nice way to have additional conversations and learnings that are not necessarily focused on industrial real estate, but more on just leadership principles. And so we actually are having one this morning. I think it starts at 9:00.
I'll be in that.
And again, I'll say this, I think I said this last time, but I'll repeat it, is that I'm a corporate end user. And so I need service providers and I need economic development people. And this is the best place to find those people is
right.
at an organization and a forum like this. I mean, I meet someone new every time, more than one, and again, I like the fact that it is industrial focused. I don't really have any responsibilities for office. So I've been to Cornet forums and I had a good time, but I really feel much more comfortable with IAMC because it's exactly what I do.
That's
And
right.
Yeah, that connectivity piece and sharing of best practices is key.
Invaluable.
So since we were in Florida last year, 12 months ago, right? A lot's changed.
Yes.
So,
yes.
I guess what's been kind of the biggest change to your business in the past 12 months?
I think that the time to get a lease negotiated has, I would say, stretched out a bit for us. And again, of course, we go back to 12 months ago. 12 months ago wasn't so bad, but we are finding now that, of course, we've always had, since the pandemic, challenges with maybe construction materials and dock doors and, whatever, we need to do to put a distribution center together. But what we're finding is now, of course, with the interest rates rising, not only are we having challenges with getting construction materials, our developers getting construction materials, we're also finding that they're having to maybe, I won't say retrade, but they're coming to us and saying, you know what, we can't do it for this amount.
Yeah.
And so then we've got to decide, because what we do at PepsiCo, which I think is brilliant, is that we go in and we get approval early. We have just basically, we kind of know what the cost of this building is going to be, and we will go ahead and get senior leadership approval, and then we're off and running. We'll do indemnity agreements with the developers to help them start spending money against the project in any manner they need to use the money. But we've done that over and over and over again, and not once have we, been burned. Not once have we had to repay the money back. But with interest rates rising, what we're seeing is, I'm sure everybody is that lenders are tightening. And so again, we mostly work, I would say, mostly with national developers. So that helps. But some of our smaller developers that do what we call our last mile facilities, they're just getting crushed with the rates that their lenders are giving them. And so we actually had one developer who is doing our last mile facilities say, I just can't do any, I can't, I'm going to have to stop and pause until things get better.
Yeah.
And even though our last mile facilities are much smaller than a big distribution center, they're just as important to us as a 200,000 square foot DC, and these might be 5,000 to 10,000 square feet. So that's been our biggest challenge, is just one, finding developers that can perform in this financial environment, and then of course just we're really having to do a lot of extra conversations with our larger developers on how are we going to do this deal if y'all feel like you can't do it for the price that we originally thought you could.
Right. So, what would you say, outside the lease delays and things going on with construction financing and all of that, what would you say that the two most dynamic things that are impacting PepsiCo right now?
Well, interest rates are impacting us as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's no secret that we have raised our prices.
Right.
And we don't like to do that, but we've had to, just like any other business. We try to control it as much as we can. But luckily and happily, I guess, I won't say food's recession proof, but people are still probably going to buy our product even if it goes up, 50 cents.
Right.
So that's helpful. But again, we have large manufacturing plants, and they're having the same challenges. We need to put a new roof on a manufacturing plant, and the cost of it when they, envision the CapEx is now changed. And what we're seeing, and I think one of the biggest challenges we're having, is that we're having to go back to senior leadership and get supplemental CapEx approval. Right. And again, that just wreaks a bit of havoc on the entire budget, right? So for the company. So I would say we're having the same challenges as others. I think it's probably less so because we are a large company. I think, again, we're seeing just everything that other corporations are seeing, and
for sure.
And developers, yes.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you about inflation and the current economy. You've done a nice job of talking about how that's impacted you guys. I imagine labor is also an issue for you guys right now. But what do you think 2023 has in store?
Well, there's been a lot of conversation about that, right? Everywhere, from everybody. And for us, I think we will continue to do the work that we're doing, and we'll figure out a way to do the deals, whether we have to recraft the building, whatever it is that we might have to do in order to make sure that we continue to move forward. Right now, I would have thought that, we have a pipeline projects that maybe we would have paused, but we haven't. And again, I think this is just a product of the fact that, and again, if y'all have seen any of the Frito-Lay advertisements or whatever, we are coming out with so many new products all the time.
I have noticed that.
Yeah. Well, we just got 3 new flavors of chip for FIFA,
Yeah.
So
why wouldn't you? Right? Like,
right, exactly. And I feel like now we've got like at least 10 versions of Mountain Dew.
Oh my gosh.
Well, and you got like all the energy drinks and stuff
my
now,
gosh,
so it's like,
right.
Yeah.
And all of, yes. So all of these new products, and I think I might have discussed this last year, it's a SKU, right? It's one product, but maybe 15 different flavors. And so we need to get every SKU that we can into a distribution center and get it out to market. And so we really aren't slowing down on the construction and the build-to-suits that we're doing, because again, every month, day that we don't deliver one of these new distribution centers is lost sales for the company. So again, I think I feel lucky, blessed, whatever, that our company is managing through this period of time. And it's so funny because we dealt with a pandemic. Now we're dealing with interest rates. But I feel like we're prepared to take on those challenges. And what I will say too is our developer partners that we're working with, you just need a very, very good relationship with those developers. We want to do deals with the same companies over and over again that are performing at the rate we need them to perform. And I just can't stress enough how important it is for us to have those relationships.
That's right.
Because we cannot do this without our brokers, without our developers, without our economic development partners. It takes a village. It really does.
Well, you certainly are a relationship master. You're great at your job. You're a great leader here at IAMC. We want to thank you for being our first repeat guest on the show again. Thank you so much. Enjoy the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy.